Well, first off, let's go ahead and get this understood. These coaches, I'm so used to saying young men if they're not Kevin Steele, who's like 60 or 80 or however old he is. Here's the beautiful thing, right? They both have been more likely. Let's go with Coach Guidry. Let's start out on the defensive side of the ball. Every offseason or every new hire, whether it's me, whether it's Cam, whether it's Paul, whether it's whoever that gets this spot, we get all excited. Miami's going to do this. Miami can do that. Miami this and that, and these position coaches and that position coaches. Not saying that the previous coaches didn't try hard. It didn't work out for some reason. Kevin Steele is one of the most respected defensive coordinators in all of college football, and the defense didn't look like Kevin Steele had anything to do with it. So as far as throwing some offseason hype on it, not going to be me. I'm excited for the young men's opportunity. I'm excited for the freshness. You're getting a new car. It's nice. It smells good in here. And you got it from CarMax. And you drive off the lot and something's wrong. Okay, get to driving and the AC done went out on you. You wake up the next day and it doesn't have that same new car smell. Okay, that's what happens when Miami gets new coaches and new hires, and everybody thinks it's, we're fixing it. We're 0-1 Canes. The U is back, baby. But they're going to be a different scheme. They're sticking to the 4-2-5 scheme. But Coach Guidry has a different viewpoint on how he runs the 4-2-5. Let's talk about it. When you talk about the 4-2-5, the 4 up front is the first thing. You talk about the down lineman. But in actuality, he runs more of a 2-4-5. So what that means for those of us who specialize in this, if you played a 3-4 defense and you went to the nickel and you went down a couple notches, it was a thing called a 2-4-5 that looked just like a nickel. What that mean was your 2 DNs came in and played D tackle, and your outside linebackers were stand-up rushers on third downs. You guys know what I'm talking about. That's what he runs. So as far as defensive tackles, he runs what's called a 32. A 32 mark means you have a 3 to the strong side, and you have a 2 or 2I to the weak side. Okay. He also runs 2 wide.
Question. Sorry to cut you off. So when you just made that designation, are you talking about every time the offense comes to the line of scrimmage, that defensive line adjusts based on where the strong side is for the offense?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So most times you hear some strong right or Ringo or strong left or Louis, and that would illustrate where the 3 technique would go to. Because more than likely it's either a back that's designating this strength, and the thing that supersedes the back is the tight end. So tight right, tight left. Now, there's some instances in some schemes where you could go tight right, strong left. Because, for example, you might have a tight end to the right, but you have a back that's to the left, plus you have 2 wide receivers that's to the left. So obviously, we got 1 guy over here, but 2 over there. We're still going to call that tight right, and 3. We're going to call that strong left and tight right. So, but that's getting a little too it can get real finicky breaking down defense. But anyway, basis 32, 3 technique to the strong side, 2 or 2I to the weak side, depending on how he wants to run it. 2 stand-up edge rushers, okay? Think Lawrence Taylor, think Jason Taylor, think Terrell Suggs. 2-point stances flying off of that ball. Now, you think to yourself, okay, well, for Miami, we have some guys like Cyrus Moss, top 6 edge rusher coming out of class 2 seasons ago. I like this scheme for a guy like that. Nigel Kelly. I like this scheme for a guy like that. Now, Messidor, who was one of the higher rated defensive end / edge rushers in college football last year, you would not know it because he played on a 5-7 football team. And if you didn't watch the Virginia Tech game, you don't know who this guy is. Well, Messidor is one of the better defensive ends in the country. Go check out some of his stats. Guy can really get after the ball and off the snap. Transfer from West Virginia, who they had playing inside. He comes to Miami and does a really nice job off the edge for Miami. Now, you wonder how we're going to make that work for a guy like that, because he's not your typical 6'4.5", 6'5", wiry, lanky frame, long-armed Jason Taylor type, like a Nigel Leak and like a Cyrus Moss. He would be more of what you would call a Terrell Suggs, a 6'3", oddly long arms, but he's in the 250 range, 260 range, 270 range, very dense and built waist style. So he's probably going to be on that strong side more likely than not. There's a couple other guys we'll get into off that edge. So let's talk about how the front is going to operate. Now, moving backwards, the two inside linebackers. We've seen this for the last 7 to 8 years or so at Miami. As far as previous defensive coordinator Manny Diaz bringing that kind of style over, transitioning from it being a third down defense to the University of Miami's full base defense running a 4-2-5. So we'll see what's going to happen with the linebacker position. I really like this for a guy like Wes Blasank. He played in this kind of scheme at Miami Central, a very nickel dime-ish kind of scheme, because in Miami it's a bunch of air raid spread stuff going on. So you need to be able to combat that defensively and have less big bodies on the field, more speed bodies on the field that can tackle. So I really like this kind of scheme for a guy like Wes Blasank, playing that will, maybe even transitioning to Mike if one or two other guys comes out of nowhere for that will position. The secondary, Miami has an All-America in Cam Kinchins as a safety. Miami also has one of the very polarizing figures on our defense in number 0, James Williams, who just had a birthday. Happy belated birthday to James Williams. We'll see what this scheme does for a guy like that, whether he's going to transition to the striker full-time, whether he's going to be a safety under Coach Guidry. We'll see. Miami has a new influx at cornerback with the Brown brothers who signed with Miami. You also have a couple guys returning from the previous season, and the exodus of Tyreek Stevenson, Al Blaze Jr., and DJ Ivy. So a lot of new faces on that back end, excluding two safeties with at least almost 2 whole years of experience. Because if you remember, in 2021, Cam Kinchins had to come in the game against Alabama to start the season because light-skinned warrior Bubba Bolden got knocked out the game for doing a helmet-to-helmet. So Cam is almost 2 whole years as a starter / big-time, big snap contributor on the Miami defense. Now, Coach Guidry has plenty that he's brought to the table as far as statistically in his time. Okay, he's very widely respected at the group of 5 level and lower where he's coached as far as his scheme and how he's aggressive, and he comes after the quarterback. He heats up the quarterback, but he also trusts his corners to have a lot of deep quarters and man coverage. Now, Miami has not shown the ability to do that on a consistent basis. So fans will be holding our breath, hoping that we don't see Tallahassee Bombers over the top on the third play of the game for 80 yards because we just can't run stride for stride with their wide receivers, or Middle Tennessee State just, running right past our secondary. So again, the overhypeness that you usually would get, the Mark, we winning 10 games. Mark, we're going 10-2. Mark, we're going to ACC championship. You're not getting that from me this season. Not because of just Miami going 5-7 last year, but you're doing the same thing over and over. You tend to come off insane. Okay, and I may be a fanatic, but I'm not insane. Eventually, you want to see this team. You want to see these young men. You want to see this scheme go out and prove it, and then prove it the next year, and the next game, and the next game, and the next game, and then the next year, and build on a consistent basis on an upward trajectory. The last time I used that terminology was referring to 2016 to 2017, and in hoping that transition into 2018, which it has not. So we're hoping that whatever they're building as a foundation right now, defensively, as far as under Coach Guidry and his previous accomplishments as a defensive coordinator, can transition well. The communication can go well. His tutelage can go well. He can finally put whatever staff and complete the staff together of whom is going to be the edge rush coach, who's going to be the defensive line coach, who's going to be D tackles, who's going to be middle linebacker and outside linebacker, who's working with the strikers, who's working with our cornerbacks, who's working with our safeties. Now, these are questions that a lot of us that cover the program don't have all the answers to. But we're hoping that Coach Cristobal and his staff have all the answers. And if they're ready to just put their heads down, put the work in, continue to recruit, and bring in the talent to help things change for the University of Miami's football program, defensively.